Now, next up this morning, we're going to be speaking with Robert O'Connor, who's a musician, and he's going to be talking about his brand new album, which just recently released. It's called Swimming Against the Tide. Now, this has received widespread acclaim all across the board, and from what I've been reading up on, it's already been streamed by people over 130,000 times on Spotify alone, and this album has really led the charge with its first single, Head Turner. And Robert recently filmed a music video Valentine's week, so last week, at Capture Lab. And he also released another single in collaboration with Valentine's Day, and that was called Love Remains. And now he's combining all of his singles together into his album. So we're joined now by Robert O'Connor to tell us a little bit more. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you keeping?
Oh, good. I don't think we've spoken before, have we? I've definitely been in Phoenix FM my fair share over the years, but I don't think we've had an interview just yet.
No, I think this might be the first time, and thanks a million for joining. I'm thrilled to speak with you this morning.
Brilliant. Always happy to talk to Phoenix.
Brilliant. So, just to kick things off from the top, would you like to tell us a little bit about sort of your background in music, who your inspirations were, kind of growing up, what led you to starting music, and what's the most rewarding part of music as an artist yourself?
I feel like there's a lot there. It's kind of like, for me, it's chapters. I look at it as being like I'm in this new chapter now, and I've sort of been in this chapter since 2018. When I returned to making music. So I actually, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, while I was in college, I was recording my first album. And I was doing it independently, funding it myself, working part-time jobs and doing recording sessions on the weekends, midterms, Easter, Christmas holidays, that kind of thing. And I kind of put everything into it. It was outside of college, it was my passion. I wasn't, not saying I wasn't socialising, but I didn't have the typical college lifestyle. All of my focus went into my music, and that was what I enjoyed. And the most rewarding thing from that was getting that first album out, and not only getting it out, but I ended up being approached by Universal Music to distribute it in Ireland and in the UK, and that was just like a real sense of achievement, having put that record together myself. So that was back in 2008, so it feels like another lifetime. And then in 2012 I did another record. It was an EP, and then I actually took 5 years off, and I worked, and I was working as a social media manager, and I was trained in journalism. That was my qualification, so I did that for a few years and a couple of other things. And then I really got the itch again around 2017. I kind of thought that I wouldn't come back in the conventional sense, because I'm releasing music and albums, because it is such an expensive, time-consuming process.
Absolutely.
Both financially and time-wise and all of those things. When you're self-managed, it's another job, especially today when there's endless social media outlets, posts on, and you've got, the content creation is on a different level now than it used to be. So it's all consuming. So it's like you have to decide, are you going to get on this this roller coaster again, because that really is what it is, and a lot of things in your life have to be sacrificed, and not everyone, I think, is willing to make those sacrifices, and I had to make that decision. It wasn't a whimsical thought in 2017, 2018 of, sure, I'll do it. It was like, do I really want to get back into this again? Because, even though the industry had changed a bit, in some ways we have all this control now, but it also means that we have to wear every hat. Your manager, you're the songwriter, you're the social media manager. Every independent artist will tell you the same thing. It's the same story across the board, and it's not unique to me. But do you know what? I love so many different elements of it, and the way I look at it now is this is kind of a lifestyle I chose to be an independent artist, and I wouldn't change it. And the best decision I ever made was coming back in 2018 and doing this, and I think I've released close to 20 singles since then. I've released 2 EPs, and now this is the first long-form proper album since then. So it's been like really baby steps. But over those 7 years, it's been very much like putting one foot in front of the other and growing really gradually rather than trying like I did on my first go around to do it all at once and to, shoot for the top. It's been much more modest, I think.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and with any industry that you're kind of jumping into, it is a massive leap. Like, you've been through college and you've been through the loops with lots of other things, and to get back into music and sort of be your own manager and take on those responsibilities, it's a massive step. And you mentioned there that you got the itch back around 2017, and then you also brought up that you've fully committed to it again in 2018, and you've been hard at it since then. So what really gave you that itch?
I was, I had written a couple of songs over those years, obviously, that I was out, and I found when I was working as a social media manager, as a journalist, I wrote much less in terms of music and songs, because I would get home from work and the creative headspace just wouldn't be, I wasn't in the creative headspace. I was in the sort of, I was writing for work and to make money, and I didn't then have that. My brain was kind of in a different place. But I remember having these two songs and thinking, I can't just leave them sitting there, whether I give them to somebody else or whether I release them myself. And I kind of came back with the intention of just doing a handful of singles and then gone on the live scene, to be honest. And the exact opposite has happened, is that I've become more of a, recording artist, not so much live. I did 1 year 2019 where I was doing a lot with a live band, but it's been the opposite. So you just really never know. But what it was that actually kind of gave me the real push was I was in Vegas on holiday, and I was at a Calvin Harris concert.
Okay.
And I just, the atmosphere and I was looking around the room and feeling just like I need to create again, and I need to make music again. And I knew sort of in the back of my mind that I wanted to come back as a different artist than I had been before, because I was a teenager, and now I'm in my 30s, and at the time I was probably in my late 20s when I came back, but it was like I just knew that it was time. It was like I had been on cruise control with all of those jobs, and I was comfortable, but there was something missing. It was, as cliche as it sounds, it was like a missing puzzle piece for those 5 years. Everything was going great for me, but I wasn't content.
And it just takes that one idea just to get that spark ignited again. And you've worked on many different singles throughout the course of coming back into music, and even your career in general so far. And with your more recent singles, would you like to shed a little bit of light on what those are about, and like what was that whole process of getting the foot in the door again, getting back in and recording it? And with the singles spanning lots of different genres, you learn different things about yourself as an artist, I'm sure. So what did you kind of take away from it as an artist?
Definitely, like, my process has always been quite fragmented or kind of solo in some ways, because I write the songs by myself, and then I sort of approach a producer, and sometimes those producers are multi-instrumentalists, and they will play everything, or sometimes you'll bring in session guys. And that was the case when I did come back in 2018. I rang up an old producer of mine and I said, look, I want to do this again. Who do you know that's kind of in the genre that I wanted to work in? And I asked him himself, did he want to be part of it? And he introduced me to, that was Steve Hogan, who had worked on my first album. He introduced me to a guy called Stuart Gray. So we worked together on about 4 tracks that year. They were all put out as singles. And that was my first time setting foot in the studio for like 7 years. So, even I had released 5 years previous, but it's been 7 years since I was in the studio. So it was a long time, and it was very daunting, and I was very nervous, and I had no sort of confidence in my ability. But now it's a completely different game, because it's all about consistency and making it like, part of your everyday life. And now there's not a day goes by that I'm not speaking to one of my collaborators. Like, I've collaborated in different parts of the world, in the UK and in the US. For instance, last night I was on a long distance production call with a producer in the US, and it's just about making it part of your everyday life, and that brings the confidence back, and it brings the ability never truly goes away, but songwriting especially is something that can feel quite fleeting. You don't know when it's going to be there and when it's not going to be there. You don't sit down and just write these pop songs out of nowhere. Some people do. For me, it's kind of I have to be in the right frame of mind. But now, yeah, I mean, consistently releasing every couple of months, sometimes less over the last, since last year. There's 5 singles out in the last year, the album, and then there's also a passion project that I've had on my mind for such a long time. I've just released something called the Chill Out Collection, which is basically a version of the album, which has been completely reproduced as like a sort of, not completely down-tempo, but relaxed, ambient, after-party vibe, or morning after vibe even. That's something that I've wanted to do for as long as I can remember. So I'm taking a lot of things off the list this year, I think.
Getting the bucket list out for the 2025 bucket list.
Yeah, it feels that way. Like I came into 2025 swinging a little bit. It was kind of like, and January has been hectic because not only did the 2 albums come out, but I've actually signed up with 2 different companies, and I always do all of this myself, but I've handed it over this time. I was approached back in December, and we've gone back and forth, and in January I signed up with a kind of sync company that would basically pitch out my music to stores and restaurants and gyms and all this sort of thing to give me that visibility in the market. And then this week I signed with a company called General Overseas Music, and the idea behind them is that they're going to sort of pitch my music out to different labels around the world. So it's like you continue to hold your rights and you continue to hold the music, but they will license it to different territories. So for instance, they feel like Belgium, Germany, Finland, all those kinds of areas are quite a fit for my music, so they're focusing in on those, whereas I wouldn't have any contacts in those places. So it's foolish and naive for me to think that I can do it by myself.
And as you brought up there earlier, you recently filmed, like, one part of breaking into the arts, or just breaking into, like, any passion that you have, is really getting that confidence meter up and believing that you can stride to do something that you believe in. And a big part of that, I feel, is expanding into different formats of making music. And one way that you've done that is that you filmed a music video, I believe, was it Valentine's Week, for Head Turner in conjunction with the album, and you filmed on location at Capture Lab. So how did that sort of differentiate itself from being in a studio and recording music?
I think all of the stuff, like I said earlier, I'm quite compartmentalised, so I'll record all of the music within a certain time frame, and then I shift my brain into sort of business mode, and I'll do all the promo prep, and then we go into the creative space of doing the photographs, the videos. And sometimes it's like all done at once, and then sometimes it's spaced out. Like at the moment we're kind of shooting as we go, so with the singles from this album, it's been like drip feeding over the past year. We started last March, and here we are, like 6 singles deep now. So the video itself, the Head Turner, Capture Lab is the photographer. That's the name that they go by. And I shot in the Bar 37 Dawson Street in Dublin. They very kindly opened up their space to us 2 Mondays ago, and we just went in, shot the video. We wanted somewhere that had that sort of luxurious feel to it, and that was the bar that gave us the opportunity to shoot. So we were very grateful for that. And the connection then with Valentine's Day, I released just a kind of a promo track. It's quite common now, I think, for artists to release, even in between singles, these promo tracks to keep momentum with Spotify and keep yourself in favour with the algorithm. So it's no longer enough to sort of release something every 3 months. They want to be, not only do the listeners want something fresh from you, but the companies like Spotify and Apple Music, they will favour you, allegedly, if you're kind of constantly feeding the beast. So that's where Love Remains came from. I thought, you know what, it's a kind of my first ballad in a long time, first kind of love song in a long time. So I released it on Valentine's Day.
And then in relation to the album itself, there's a multitude of different ways that you can listen to the album, and even just the singles themselves, if there's a particular one that really catches your eye. So how can somebody listen to it for themselves, and even like get in touch online if they want to access more information about the singles? Or I believe there's a website for you as well for merchandise and general kind of news.
Yeah, there's lots coming. The website is iamrobertoconnor.com, and you can find me on all the socials under the same name, I am Robert O'Connor. the music's out there on every platform that you might listen to, whether it's downloading on Amazon or Bandcamp or streaming on Spotify or Apple Music. I'm on Instagram. People want to ask me questions, I'm there, or any of the social medias. And YouTube is growing for me right now. That's proven to be the one that's the most popular, I think, right now because of the video content, and hopefully that will continue with this new video. And I'm also just kind of getting into doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff on there. So if people follow me on YouTube or Instagram, they'll see that I do a lot of behind-the-song featurettes and music video commentaries and stuff that I enjoy from other artists. I'm kind of applying that to myself now.
Brilliant. Well, thanks a million for coming on, Robert. We're sadly going to have to let you go, but thanks a million for coming on. And with a little bit of luck now, we'll make sure we get plenty of people listening to your new album. We'll give you that extra boost, and we'll make sure to shout out everything at the end of the show.
Thanks a million. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a million for coming on.
Have a great day.
Have a good
Cheers,
day.
bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.